It began like any other summer, at least on the surface. The steady hum of air conditioning and the distant call of seagulls marked the arrival of June, bringing with it memories that were at once comforting and quietly unsettling. My name is Amelia. I'm a freelance graphic designer, a creator of images and stories, but for the past 8 years, I've become accustomed to being left out of the family story. The chapter titled Summer at Mom's Beach Cottage. A chapter where my children and I were the unwelcome footnotes. The beach cottage itself was lovely, nestled just off the North Carolina coast, for bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, windows wide enough to drink in the endless stretch of sand and surf beyond. From the outside, it was the perfect family getaway. But inside, a fortress of favoritism and unspoken resentment. I still remember the phone call, the same one that came every March like clockwork. Mom's voice, warm but rehearsed, saying, "Amelia, honey, I'm so sorry, but there just isn't enough room at the beach house this year." The words felt like a punch, every year the same, every year cutting deeper. Olivia's family, my sisters, had grown to 4 children, Jack, Ava, James, and Arya. They filled the cottage with noise and chaos, their belongings sprawling out like they owned the place. Meanwhile, my children, Alex and Mia, would ask the question I dreaded most. "Mom, why don't we get to go to Grandma's beach house like Jack and the others?" I never had a good answer. The morning light filtered softly through the blinds as I sipped my coffee, sitting alone in my small home office. The glow of my computer screen cast shadows across the room. I worked tirelessly at building my graphic design firm, often putting in 12-hour days filled with creating logos, branding, and websites for clients who didn't always understand the value of creativity. The steady hum of email notifications was my only company. Yet, despite my hard work, my mother had labeled me still figuring things out. At family gatherings, she'd whisper to relatives about how I was playing around on my computer, a euphemism for unemployed in her eyes. Olivia's life was stable, and she made no effort to hide her thinly veiled condescension. One evening, I watched as Olivia's Instagram flooded with pictures of their beach house escapades. Kids building sandcastles, Mike grilling steaks on the deck, Olivia lounging in the hammock with a drink in hand. I scrolled through the images, my fingers hovering over the screen, a knot tightening in my chest. The laughter and joy felt like a world away from the quiet living room where my own children and I watched movies. The glow of the TV, a poor substitute for sun-drenched beaches. Last summer was different. I had just landed my biggest client yet, a 6-figure contract with a tech company that would change everything for my business. I was eager to share the news at Mom's birthday party, hoping maybe this year, things would be different. But the words that greeted me were the same as always. "Maybe now you can think about getting a more stable job," Mom said, her smile tight. Olivia's laughter cut through the air. "Amelia likes playing around on her computer. It's not like she's ready for a real career." Later that night, as Mom launched into her not enough room speech, Olivia sneered, loud enough for all to hear. "Maybe if you had a real job, you could afford your own vacation. The rest of us shouldn't have to sacrifice our family time because you can't get your life together." The room went quiet, but inside me, something shifted. I smiled politely, nodded, but inside I was done. The weeks that followed were a blur of hard work and quiet planning. I kept driving my old Honda, living modestly, hiding my growing success like a secret weapon. I didn't want anyone to know. Not yet. In March, just before the usual call from Mom, I made a decision. I bought a small beachfront resort, a tired little place that needed love and vision. It wasn't big, only 12 rooms, but it had potential. I poured my heart into renovations. New furnishings, a shimmering infinity pool, a children's play area bigger than anything I'd ever imagined for my own kids. A restaurant serving food that could rival any 5-star kitchen. By June, Seaside Haven Resort was ready. The morning after the grand opening of Seaside Haven Resort, the salty tang of the ocean breeze slipped through the partially open window of my room. The faint cry of gulls mingled with the gentle crashing of waves, a soundtrack both calming and resolute. I lay in bed for a moment, the soft linen sheets cool against my skin, feeling the weight of everything I'd worked for. This wasn't just a business, it was a statement, a quiet rebellion against the years of dismissal and silent judgment. Downstairs, the lobby was already alive with activity. The scent of fresh paint mixed with the faint aroma of brewing coffee and the crisp linen from freshly made beds. My heart raced with a strange mix of pride and nerves. Was this enough to finally carve out the place my children deserved? Alex and Mia were still asleep when I slipped out of bed. I imagined their sleepy faces, curled under blankets in the small but cozy rooms I'd decorated for them. Walls painted in soft ocean blues and sunny yellows, plush rugs where they could play, and windows framing the endless sea. I smiled to myself, recalling their usual excitement at summer's arrival, how they used to beg to visit Grandma's place. Now, they had their own beach haven, one where their laughter wouldn't be drowned out by favoritism or hushed whispers. As I made my way to the small kitchen, I passed by the wall of framed photos I had hung. Snapshots of moments with my children, candid smiles, messy hair after a day at the beach, sand sticking to sun-kissed skin. Each frame was a testament to a different chapter, a story I was rewriting. The kettle clicked on, steam rising from the spout as I prepare my morning coffee. Alone with my thoughts, I allowed myself to feel the exhaustion beneath the exhilaration. I knew this path wouldn't be easy. There were still conversations to have, judgments to face, and scars that refused to heal. By mid-morning, guests began to trickle in. Families, couples, the occasional lone traveler looking for solitude. Each arrival brought a fresh wave of responsibility. I moved through the lobby, greeting visitors with a warm smile, masking the bitterness that sometimes lurked beneath. One elderly couple stopped by the front desk, their fingers intertwined like decades-old promises. Mrs. Reynolds commented on the ocean view, her eyes bright with nostalgia. I nodded, telling them about the local tide pools and secret coves few tourists ever found. Small talk, but genuine. Later, I watched as Alex and Mia ran barefoot along the shoreline, their laughter ringing out like music. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was on the outside looking in. Yet, the past still whispered. I caught myself scanning the horizon for familiar faces, a part of me hoping Mom or Olivia might show up, if only to see what I'd built. But days passed with no call, no invitation, no hint of reconciliation. The nights were the hardest. Alone in my room, I'd stare at the ceiling, replaying conversations that had stung, trying to decipher the why behind the coldness. Was it jealousy, disappointment, or something deeper, a refusal to accept the woman I'd become? I thought about the times I'd pleaded for inclusion, for acknowledgement, only to be met with silence or sneers. And yet, here I was, building a life on my own terms, healing wounds that never fully closed. One evening, a local artist named Theo stopped by the resort's small gallery room. He had a quiet intensity, his dark eyes scanning the walls where I'd hung paintings from local creators. We talked for hours about art, life, and the invisible battles people fought every day. Theo's presence was a balm. His calm, observant nature reminded me of a detective, noticing the little things most overlooked. He didn't rush me, didn't ask for explanations. Instead, he listened, offering insights wrapped in questions. Sometimes, he said softly, the hardest mysteries are the ones closest to home, and sometimes, the clues are hidden in the quiet moments. I nodded, feeling the weight of his words. Maybe that was the key, not to rush, not to demand answers, but to observe, to understand, to accept the wounds while seeking the light. As I closed the gallery that night, the moon hung low over the ocean, a silver promise in the dark sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, I allowed myself a fragile hope. The days blurred into weeks, but the weight of the past never quite lifted. I found solace in the rhythms of the resort, the steady pulse of waves, the murmur of guests sharing stories, the creak of wooden floors beneath my feet. But beneath the surface, old wounds stirred, shadows I try not to face. Each morning, I greeted the dawn with a walk along the cliffside path. The ocean stretched endlessly, a mirror reflecting both possibility and the ache of what I'd lost. The wind tangled my hair, whispered promises and threats alike, and I let it carry away the doubts that crept in when night fell. Mia had started school at the nearby town's small academy, her bright eyes filled with nervous excitement and quiet fear. I watched her take tentative steps into this new world. Friendships budding, new routines unfolding, and felt a sting of guilt for the times I wasn't there to hold her hand. Alex, ever the protector, became my anchor. His steady presence soothed the storm inside me. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear him whispering stories to Mia, inventing fantastical tales where villains were defeated by courage and kindness. I clung to those moments, fragile threads weaving a tapestry of hope. Yet, the scars ran deep. Olivia's silence was a constant echo. I knew she had reasons, pride, disappointment, maybe fear, but that didn't make it any easier. I spent hours crafting letters I never sent, words spilling out on paper, a raw plea for understanding that felt too vulnerable to share. One afternoon, a letter arrived, but it wasn't from her. It was from an old friend, someone who had watched from afar, bearing news I hadn't expected. "Meet me at the lighthouse," the note read, written in hurried script. The lighthouse was a relic from my childhood, a towering stone sentinel guarding the cliffs, weathered by time and storms. As I approached, the sky grew heavy with clouds, the wind a restless force that tugged at my coat. Inside, I found him, Marcus, a man I hadn't seen in years, his eyes sharp, his smile tight. His presence stirred memories I thought long buried. He spoke cautiously, words dripping with secrets. "There's more what you think you know, about your family, about why things happened the way they did." I listened, heart pounding, as he revealed layers of betrayal, misunderstandings, and choices made in shadows. His revelations cracked the foundation of my anger, replacing some of the bitterness with something fragile, understanding. But the price was high. Trust, once broken, is a difficult thing to rebuild. That night, I stood on the cliff's edge, the cold sea breeze biting my cheeks. I thought about forgiveness, not for them, but for myself, for the girl who had been silenced, for the woman fighting to be seen. Theo's words echoed softly in my mind. The hardest mysteries are closest to home. Back at the resort, the guests' laughter mingled with the ocean's song. Life was moving forward, slow but steady, like the tide. I knew the road ahead was uncertain, paved with pain and possibility. And as the moon rose again, casting silver light over the water, I made a silent promise to keep searching, to keep healing, and to never let the past define the future. Spring gradually gave way to summer, and the resort pulsed with new life. The crisp air of early mornings warmed into golden afternoons, where sunlight kissed the wooden decks and laughter echoed across the beach. Families arrived in steady streams, their suitcases full of hopes and old traditions, each guest bringing a fresh story to the quiet sanctuary by the sea. Inside this growing world of warmth and renewal, my own small family was finding its fragile footing. Mia's school days became more than just lessons and books. They turned into adventures, opportunities to carve out a place in a world that had once felt so alien to her. Each new friendship she forged was a tiny victory, small treasures I celebrated quietly from the sidelines. One afternoon, I watched her sitting cross-legged under the old oak tree behind the school, sharing a secret smile with a group of classmates. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of curiosity and cautious trust. I realized then how much time I'd spent shielding her from the world, trying to protect a heart too tender to break again. But now, she was building walls of her own, slowly learning to let others in. Alex remained my steadfast anchor. His quiet strength, his unwavering belief in me and in us, was the steady rhythm beneath the chaos of my thoughts. Late at night, when the resort had fallen silent except for the soft hiss of waves against the shore, we'd sit on the porch, watching stars flicker in the vast sky. "Do you think we'll ever be truly free of all this?" I asked one such night, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex turned toward me, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "I don't know, but maybe it's not about being free of the past. Maybe it's about carrying it without letting it weigh us down." His words settled over me like a balm, even as the memories clawed at the edges of my mind. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. Meanwhile, the letters I had drafted so many times, raw, painful, full of unspoken apologies and desperate hope, finally gave way to actual contact. Olivia's voice was hesitant when she called, brittle like thin ice over a deep, dark lake. "I've been watching from a distance," she said quietly. "You've done well, better than I expected." The walls I'd built around my heart wavered. Her words stirred a conflicted mix of relief, resentment, and a faint glimmer of forgiveness. Over the next few weeks, tentative meetings followed, awkward conversations over coffee, long silences filled with the weight of years lost. Sometimes the past overwhelmed us both, and we retreated behind defensive smiles. Other times, glimpses of the sister I'd once known broke through, fragile but real. We were both wounded, carrying scars no one else could see. But maybe, just maybe, we could begin to mend what had been broken. At the resort, life continued in its steady rhythm. The scent of salt and pine mingled in the air. Early mornings brought the calls of seagulls and the shimmer of dew on the grass. Afternoons were filled with the chatter of guests exploring the rugged coastline, the occasional splash of children daring each other to jump into the cold surf. I found comfort in the small routines, brewing morning coffee, greeting guests by name, watching the sun dip below the horizon in fiery swaths of orange and pink. One evening, as the sky melted into twilight, Theo and I sat by the fire pit near the beach. Flames flickered, casting warm light on his contemplative face. The crackling fire mingled with the gentle crash of waves nearby, an orchestra of life's contradictions, fierce yet gentle, chaotic yet calm. His hand brushed mine, tentative but sure. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "Stronger than you realize." His gaze held mine, and I saw a depth of understanding that went beyond words. The journey had been hard, marked by loss and fear, but also by resilience and unexpected grace. As summer stretched on, I allowed myself to dream, not of fairy tale endings, but of possibilities. Moments of peace, laughter, and connection. The kind of healing that comes slowly, like the tide reshaping the shore one grain of sand at a time. The scars remained, reminders of battles fought and endured. But beneath them, a new strength blossomed, one that embraced imperfection and dared to hope. On a quiet morning, as dawn painted the sky in soft hues of lavender and gold, I stood at the edge of the shore, watching Mia and Alex chase each other across the sand. Their laughter was a melody that stirred something deep within me, a fierce, protective love, a promise of better days. I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs, and whispered to the sea, "This is just the beginning." Seaside Haven was more than a refuge. It was a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, to rebuild, and to find light even in the darkest places. And as the waves rolled in endlessly, so too did hope, steady, relentless, and beautifully alive.